This video is about how to deal with a drum that's out of round. It's not common in the higher end drums that we have, but it does happen from time to time. You get a drum that's not totally round. And what that does is the head doesn't really seat correctly on it, and so you have to mess with it a little bit to get it to work. If it's not too bad, you can actually get the drum to be fine once the heads are tensioned and you have it tuned up. So with that being said, we're going to go through the process that we always go through when we're changing a head. So I'm just going to take this head off and I'll get the other head seated like we've covered in some other videos, and then we'll talk about where to go from there. So I've gotten the old head off, but before I put the new head on, I just want to show you what I mean by out of round. So when there's no no head or hoop on the drum, you can actually kind of deform the drum a good bit in whatever direction. Depending on the humidity level and temperature and all that kind of stuff, the drum can kind of do that to itself. So this particular drum is usually out of round. Tonight, actually, it's not too bad, but one of the ways you can check it is by kind of measuring it with a stick and just going around and checking it, and I can see a fairly large difference there. I mean, by large, I mean like 1/8 of an inch, which is not a lot, but it's a lot for a drum. So what happens is the head won't sit on there correctly. So when I take the head and set it on the drum, it kind of rocks back and forth, and I can actually tell which way the drum's out of round by doing that. So it's actually, the drum's longer this way than it is this way, and it makes like two little hinge points right here where the head kind of rocks back and forth. What I want to do when I'm putting the head on is I'll lay the head on like I normally do, get the hoop back on, and get the thing started, and just get it finger tight the whole way around. Now I'm still keeping in mind where that little hinge point was, because that's important for me to know. Because as soon as I get this thing finger tight, I'm going to take the drum and put it between my knees so that I can squeeze it, because I only have two hands and I need both of them for tuning. So I'm going to use my knees to kind of squeeze the drum and make this thing sit a little better. So I can already tell that the hoop's really kind of bottomed out here the whole way around, which is what I'm after. Now the other thing that I'll do is I'll take my finger and kind of run it around in here and see if the gap between the hoop and the head is consistent the whole way around. And you can kind of visually check that and also run your finger around. You can feel where the wide spots are. And then just make sure that these lugs get some tension on them. And then once you do that, then that kind of sets it. Now the hoop and the head are sort of helping to hold the drum in the correct position. Now the real test is when I start to tune it up, if I start to hear some weirdness in it, but that actually sounds pretty decent. So what I'm looking for is, do I have even tension around the head? And it sounds pretty good. So I would say at this point I'm ready to tune this drum. I would go through my normal process for tuning, and just being aware that if I'm hearing something that's a little bit off, it's most likely due to the fact that the drum is still trying to push itself back out of round, because its natural position with no heads is out of round. It has a little bit of a weird buzz. I think that's somewhat in the bottom head, but it actually tuned up pretty well. So what I was doing to get the drum sort of back into round as I was putting the head on worked pretty well. But I will say that I go into an out of round drum, and to me it's a little bit of a coin flip as to whether it's going to work or not. So if it doesn't tune up easily, don't be discouraged. It requires a lot of perseverance sometimes to make a drum work because the drum doesn't want to. There have been times where I have gone through this process, done everything right, got to the end, got to this point, and there was just a rattle or a buzz or something weird in the drum that I just, for the life of me, could not get rid of. And I would work on it for 20, 30 minutes trying to get that out of it and just couldn't do it. And at some point I would give up and loosen the thing back up and just start over. And then sometimes that'll work and you don't know what you did differently. It just worked that time and not the other time. And that's an extremely frustrating experience. The only thing I can say is you have to persevere through that and just get some repetitions kind of doing this until you get the hang of it. Working on a good drum and sort of cutting your teeth on that is good. You get a lot of practice into the procedure of it, so that when you get to a bad drum, you at least know what you're doing and why you're doing it, even if it's not quite working the way that you want it to. And if all else fails, you can shove a pillow in it and cover it in tape, and that should get rid of any weird noises.